Today I'll be presenting on the alternative p-values and guidelines in rewriting results. First, the problem statement that is obtained from the two articles. P-value is used in null hypothesis statistical tests to make binary decisions such as significant or non-significant, there is an effect or there is no effect, based on a sharp arbitrary cutoff which is generally used as p-value equals to 0.05. According to Laken's 2021, p-value does not provide information such as the posterior probability of a hypothesis, the false positive risk, effect size and its confidence interval, the likelihood, Bayes factor, and the severity with which a hypothesis has been tested. When the p-value was originally developed, the term significance was used to indicate that an observed outcome was worth closer investigation. However, null hypothesis would be rejected only if follow-up experiments also rarely fail to achieve significance. P-value was opposed from being used as an automatic inference. Publication bias resulted in false positive findings due to misusing p-value, such as publish only the significant results more often than the non-significant result. The objectives according to both articles are to evaluate whether p-values provide an answer to a question that researchers would want to know whether alternatives to p-values would fare any better in the hands of researchers, to come up with ways on how we can improve the use of p-values in practice, and also to stop teaching researchers that there is something they want to know, instead teaching them the possible questions which they can ask. If p-value is to be used, should the significance level be lowered to 0.005 instead of 0.05? The figure here shows the relationship between the p-value, threshold, power, and the false positive. In this study, it is considered that lowering the significance level to p-value, which is 0.005, would reduce the false positive rate to reasonable levels. For example, as shown in the figure here, high statistical power, which is alpha 0.005, combine to produce low false positive rate. However, lowering the significant value from 0.05 to 0.005 is also not advisable, since lowering the p-value threshold for significance would require a larger sample size, which are less feasible as it requires a longer time to complete a study and it can be more expensive. Achieving 80% power with a threshold of 0.005 instead of 0.05 would require a 70% larger sample size for between subject study designs with two-sided tests, and about 88% of sample size is required for one-sided tests. For example, in medical research, treatments with large effect sizes would gain the evidence due to the statistical power granted by the medical industries. Conversely, treatments with a small effect size would be hardly proven as effective. Alternatives for p-values in statistical analysis. The first is the information criterion, which is AKK information criterion, Bayesian information criterion, and then Bayes factors or confidence intervals also can be reported in the results. Besides that, Neyman-Pearson hypothesis test can be performed under two conditions, which is the null hypothesis should be plausible enough, where it is hardly rejected, or if the researcher is interested in applying a methodological procedure that allows the researcher to make decisions about how to act while controlling error rates. Training researchers on using existing frequencies and Bayesian approaches to estimation and hypothesis testing instead of developing novel statistical approaches is also encouraged. replacing null hypothesis test with test of range prediction, in which the goal is to reject the effects which fall outside of the range of effects that is predicted. Finally, using equivalence test can prevent misinterpreting a non-significant effect as the absence of a meaningful effect. According to Dempster and Skatskov, who considered the expected significance level defined as the expected value of the p-value when a particular alternative is true, estimation techniques based on Monte Carlo simulation was proposed. The information of assumed alternative and the sample size of a given experiment are necessary when reporting the problem of the distribution of p-value under the alternative. Literature review that supported the p-value. In January 2021, issues from 8 major journals in ecology and evolution and all research papers containing at least one statistical analysis. About 137 of them were checked, and it was found that about 131 of the papers reported results based on the null hypothesis statistical test philosophy. About 104 used dichotomous decisions, which were based on p-value. About 7 used the confidence intervals, 95% confidence intervals, whereas 2 used an information criterion. As a conclusion, a total of 110 out of 113 of the papers reported their findings using the significance terminology. There was no change in the routine of writing the results sections of a research paper. The new guidelines for rewriting the results section of a research paper. A non-binary report, by using exact p-values and interpreting that there was no weak or moderate or strong or very strong evidence for a certain finding or effect depending on approximate ranges into which the actual p-value falls. This actually shows that a non-binary report, which is using the term significance and non-significance, can be replaced with terms such as there was no or weak, moderate or strong or very strong evidence. Besides that, by using evidence, for example, assessing weak evidence against the null hypothesis to see if more data are needed for a clear assessment by reporting the effect sizes, confidence intervals and Bayes factor. Furthermore, it is suggested that researchers should report p-value more than 0.05 using statements such as the direction of the differences among the treatments was undetermined, by replacing significance with clarity, since it has a better potential to improve statistical communication. Supporting the evidence-based language. There are 3 key advantages of evidence-based language. The term evidence itself reflects the information content of the data, and it allows for a nuanced interpretation via the gradual shifts from a very strong to no evidence. Evidence-based language is also a well-known used language for a very long time. It is believed that the statistical terminology should be consistent across all fields. Evidence is an intuitive concept which helps open research to be more accessible to a wide range of audiences, such as non-scientists, from public, stakeholders and media, people with average scientific research knowledge. Although many studies have been against the usage of binary decisions such as the term significance and non-significant, however, binary decision can still be used under certain circumstances, such as it can be used in the context of requiring practical reasons to act, such as in drug development, public health, policy making in ecosystem management, and conservation. Binary decision can be used when decision making is based on only one or a few studies, where the underlying studies have fulfilled with very high quality standards. High quality standards, for example, in drug development, it is with prospective randomized controlled trials that are based on a long list of requirements such as the sample size calculation, pre-registration, statistical analysis plans. In table 1 here shows the generic examples of how to rewrite results from statistical significance language to an evidence-based language. In table 1 here, the inferring weak effects from large p-values is written as differences between treatment and control groups were non-significant with p-values of at least 0.3 and most in the range between p-value more than equal to 0.7 and less than equal to 0.9. This sentence is converted into evidence-based language, which is differences between treatment and control groups were not statistically clear. The next example refers to the effect of X on Y was not significant. The term not significant was converted into there was no evidence that X has an effect on Y, or another example would be the data did not have any evidence about the direction of any association of X with Y. Another example is accepting the null hypothesis, which is p-value more than 0.05. In terms of no effect, toxins accumulate after acute exposure but have no effect on behavior. The term have no effect is converted into an evidence-based language, which is toxins accumulate after acute exposure but their effects on behavior are statistically unclear. That's all from me. Thank you.